Good morning. Uh, Thank you for joining us this morning. I appreciate your spending 1 hour or so with us. This morning, we have a great panel. We're going to talk about the transition that Arizona has seen to at-home learning. And my name is Luigi Del Puerto. I'm the associate publisher and editor of the Arizona Capital Times. And the Arizona Capital Times, of course, covers state government. A lot of people call us a non-ideological, independent, nonpartisan newspaper. I kind of refer to ourselves as an equal harassment newspaper. And if you don't have a subscription to the Arizona Capital Times, let me know, and I'm gonna get that squared away. So shoot me an email or shoot me a text after this discussion this morning. We are, as I mentioned, we are very fortunate to have our panel this morning. But first, I want to thank our sponsor for engaging with us this way. Lexia Learning is a Rosetta Stone company and is one of the best known and most highly respected reading technology companies in the world. Founded more than 35 years ago with private funding and grants from the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development, Lexia's products are now used by 4 million students. Its ongoing commitment to peer-reviewed efficacy research and gold standard outcome studies are at the center of their pedagogical approach. Lexia's literacy acceleration portfolio includes 3 research-based programs: Lexia's Core 5 Reading, which is designed for students in grades pre-K to 5, provides an adaptive, individualized learning experience to advance reading skills in phonological awareness, phonics, structural analysis, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. Core 5 Reading accelerates reading skill development, predicts students' year-end performance, and provides teachers with data-driven action plans to help differentiate instruction. Lexia's Power Up Literacy is designed to enhance core English language arts instruction, and that is for non-proficient readers in grades 6 to 12. It blends browser-based student-driven instruction online with offline educator-delivered lessons and independent skill-based activities. It accelerates the development of both fundamental literacy skills and higher-order thinking skills through personalized learning paths. And finally, Lexia's Rapid Assessment for grades K to 12 is a research-based computer adaptive reading and language assessment. Rapid allows educators to gather predictive norm reference data up to 3 times a year with immediate scoring and reports. Across Arizona, our state, more than 37,000 students in 40 districts are using Lexia's programs to help with their literacy goals. Lexia's programs were also vetted by the Arizona Department of Education and have been approved for use with several funding sources, including Move On When Reading, Early Literacy Grant, and TSI grants. And our panel this morning, we are fortunate to have Kathy Hoffman. Kathy is the Arizona State Superintendent of Public Instruction, elected in November 2018. Superintendent Hoffman assumed office in January 2019. She has spent her entire career working in public education, first as a preschool teacher and then as a speech language pathologist. She began her career in the Vail School District in southern Arizona before joining the Peoria School District. Her experience as both educator and advocate for students with disabilities informs her vision for public education. Kathy, thank you for joining us this morning. Are you just at home?
Thank you. Yes, I am. Thank you so much for having me.
Also with us is Dr. LeeAnn Aguilar-Lawlor. She is the superintendent of the Cartwright Elementary School District. She's the first female and Latina superintendent of the district. She was born and raised in Tucson before graduating from the University of Arizona and moving to Phoenix to teach in 1989. She has 31 years in education experience, including serving in 3 districts as a social studies teacher at Cartwright. 3 years in 3 districts as a social studies teacher. She also served as assistant principal, and as an assistant superintendent of educational services at Cartwright. She served in the United States Air Force Reserves as a staff sergeant and was activated during Operation Desert Storm to serve overseas as a medical specialist. She is married and a proud mother of 2 amazing children, Gabriela and Maximo. Thanks for your service, LeeAnn.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Are you in your superintendent's office?
Actually, in our governing board room.
Oh, perfect. Awesome. Dr. Sheila Harrison-Williams is also joining us this morning. She is the Executive Director of the Arizona School Boards Association. Prior to joining ASBA, Dr. Harrison-Williams served as Interim Superintendent for the East Prairie Schools District in Illinois. She also served as President of the Illinois Association of School Administrators. She was the Superintendent of Hazel Crest School District, and before that of the Fairmont School District. She received her bachelor's degree in special education and elementary education, as well as a master's degree from Northeastern University. She then completed her degree of Doctor of Education in Educational Leadership from Northern Illinois University. Dr. Harrison-Williams, thanks for joining us this morning.
My pleasure.
And finally, we have Dr. Liz Brook, who is the Chief Learning Officer of Lexia Learning and Rosetta Stone. Dr. Brooke has been working in the education sector for more than 25 years and joined Rosetta Stone in 2010. Her current role provides the educational vision for her organization. Dr. Brooke began her career as a first grade teacher and as the Director of Interventions at the Florida Center for Reading Research. She also served as a speech-language pathologist at Massachusetts General Hospital and in the public school setting. She earned her bachelor's degree in child study from Tufts University and a master's in communication sciences and disorders at Massachusetts General Hospital Institute of Health Professions. Focusing her studies on the connection between oral and written language, she then earned her doctorate degree in communication disorders at Florida State University. Dr. Brooke shares Rosetta Stone's mission of changing lives with the power of language and literacy education, and it continues to be the driving force behind all of her work. Liz, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
You do share something in common with Kathy. You're both speech pathologists.
Yes, we're a powerful group.
Again, if you're joining us this morning, we have we will be talking about what resources are available to schools, parents, teachers, but also we'll talk about how the transition has been for Arizona now that we're all in self-isolation and working from home, and for some of us, or for many of us, also homeschooling from home full time. A quick reminder, if you have questions for me or for the panel members, please don't hesitate to send in your questions via the chat room. If you also want to send it via my email, you can also do that one. But I would recommend just drop a line or two, a question or two, or more if you like, via the chat room, and then we'll try to go through these questions, as much as we can. Kathy, I want to ask you first, because the legislature, I believe, is going to adjourn sine die on May 1st. That means that the budget that they have enacted a couple of weeks ago is effectively the budget in place for, in the meantime, until I think the plan is to come back at some point and do a special session and maybe revisit the budget. I was wondering if I can get your thoughts on this one. Obviously, revenues are going down. What are your fears, and what kinds of communication have you been having with our legislative leaders?
Thank you, Luigi. I am very concerned because we are seeing across the country that there are budget shortfalls, that there's this major economic downturn for not just Arizona, but the whole country. So that does cause a lot of concern. And what I am advocating for with our legislators and our governor is we cannot afford more cuts to education. We saw a lot of cuts, more cuts than any other state in the country during the last recession and from 2008 on. We cannot afford more cuts. This is a time when we need extra resources for our schools. We are still dealing with with not having enough teachers in our classrooms to support our students. This is especially pronounced for special education providers and teachers. This is a time when we are going to need more school counselors, more social workers because a lot of our parents are experiencing job loss during this time. So I'm going to be a strong advocate that we cannot see a single cut to education during this time. And there will be stimulus funds coming from the federal government. And so we'll be working closely with our other education leaders in the state and our districts, our school leaders, to talk about how to have a comprehensive plan to use those funds in a way that will be most supportive during this COVID-19 crisis.
So we now have, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kathy, you know this better than I do. Do all of our 1 million plus kids, they're all at home, they're all learning at home now. Just give us a broad assessment of where we're at right now. How is the teaching and the learning has been so far the last couple of weeks?
It truly is varying from district to district. And so while many of our districts were able to shift pretty quickly to online learning, so many of our districts already had laptops that they were able to loan out to students, or districts whose families had the means to switch more quickly to online resources. So we have many districts that I would say are in that category. On the other hand, we have far too many districts, far too many schools that did not have the resources. One thing keeping me up at night is even just thinking about Navajo Nation, that there are many families that do not even have electricity at home, and they do not have devices, they do not have access to internet. So for those types of communities that are very remote and rural, very impoverished, those districts, those schools have been doing their best to try to provide educational opportunities through packets. However, I know that they're not able to reach every single student. And so right now, this digital divide is crippling to Arizona, and it's not going to be a short-term problem. It's going to be a long-term issue that we need to address. It's an issue of internet access. It's an issue of having enough devices for every family, for every student. And this is going to be a long-term issue. And I know I'm grateful that we have already started to build partnerships with other state agencies, with the Commerce Authority, with the governor's office. We're working on getting hotspots out to families that need it. But ultimately right now, this is just a drop in the bucket, and we have a long way to go.
And we'll flesh out those details in a little bit. I want to ask Liz, because Liz, you kind of have a national platform. You're kind of seeing what's going on across the country. Give us a bit of an idea if, I'm presuming what we're experiencing in Arizona is really not unique, right? The other states are struggling just as we are. The problems and challenges that Kathy had laid out are happening as well in other states.
Absolutely. Seeing that across the country. And I think, the first questions that you talked about, even electricity in some homes, or those students who are homeless and families that are homeless, seeing about not only connectivity, but the devices themselves. We're seeing examples of, superintendents or districts putting hotspots on buses and driving those into the most impacted neighborhoods and parking those in the neighborhoods overnight, putting them in the, library parking lots and those types of things. But I think, Kathy, what you talked about that you guys are doing absolutely critical is partnering with communities. And this is not a school issue. This is a community issue. This is all in together. And so that's what we're seeing across the country, is partnering with local and national internet companies, partnering with Apple and Google and other companies to not only get the devices, but get the connectivity as well. And so absolutely. And again, even maybe before that, right, the first impact is on the basic needs of food, electricity, and those kinds of things. But this is absolutely a nationwide concern. And again, the things that you talked about, Kathy, are absolutely what we're seeing as best practices, is building those relationships, because it goes beyond just education at this point.
And LeeAnn, let me ask you about your school district. What was the transition like for you? What were the biggest challenges that you faced? If you could, name one or two. And I guess the other question is, how did you resolve those challenges?
Oh, thank you for asking. I want to just say everything that Superintendent Hoffman said is what we're in Cartwright. Our school district is, 100% on that connectivity as an issue for all of our schools and all of our students. And we service about over 16,000 students. But also many of the staff members that we have that live in our community also have issues with being able to educate our students from home as well. So we actually, from the very beginning, understood that this was going to be quite a challenge. So we didn't start with automatically mandating online learning, because we knew that technology and devices and connectivity was an issue. So we created a 3-phase plan, and we are in our 3rd phase. Our first phase was to get the word out there, connect with families, let them know that we were going to be closed, not closed, how we were going to start working with them, understanding that they had their own roles as parents that had worked and maybe had to work from home. So it was just a 2-week transition after spring break of this new working from home, not even knowing how long it was going to be at the time when we first closed schools. We didn't know that it was going to be through the end of the school year. And so it was like, don't panic, let's be patient. We've got this. Then the second phase was actually creating the packets, as Superintendent Hoffman said. But we had learned from other school districts that had started doing packets that it was also creating a social distancing problem, because people were picking them up. So we ended up mailing out all those packets to all of our families so that they didn't have to come to the campus.
How many students do you have? So you're mailing them out to how many families?
We mailed out to 16,200, about 400 of those were our preschool students. And with the preschool, we put crayons and other little gadgets in for the preschool students so they could immediately, and we were getting pictures from the preschool families with the excitement of the kids getting the mail with their packets and their crayons. And so it's been interesting to have to, decide how we go from preschool to 8th grade. So everyone has different needs. So then our 3rd phase was online learning. So that actually gave us time to equip our Chromebooks and our iPads with the apps and the things that I know more about IT than I ever have. So I'm not going to say I'm an IT expert, but those things took time. But honestly, our principals, assistant principals, teachers, instructional assistants, all of them were all part of the technology rollout, and it was quite amazing. Social distancing, cones out, everyone was, with their mask and their gloves. And we literally had the idea that we were going to ensure that every family, if they had 4 students, at least 2 devices, everyone would have at least 1 device. We wanted to do 1-to-1, but we didn't have that. But we do have a lot of families that have more than 1 student. So we do have at least 2 to 3 if they're larger families. And the goal was 100%. It's still 100%. And I will tell you, when you say the goal is 100% to get everybody a Chromebook or an iPad, our principals take that to heart. Our teachers, our staff take that to heart. And we actually have 2 schools right now that have 100% of the children in their schools that have access to a device.
How many of your kids, I'm sorry, LeeAnn, how many of your kids or families don't have the equipment at this point? I'm wondering, if you were rolling them out, you're having to buy a bunch of computers in a very truncated period. I'm just wondering if at this point you have kids that either for one reason or another don't have the equipment, don't have the platform, or quite frankly don't have the Wi-Fi capability, the internet capability.
So that is where we're at right now in phase 3, trying to connect 100%. And as we heard earlier, putting the Wi-Fi on buses, trying to figure out where to park them. The back order of hotspots, everybody's trying to get hotspots, so we can't get those. What we've done is we've asked all of our principals to give us the address and the names specifically of the students that are not connected, and we're paying for the service for them to put the hotspot in their home, whether it's on their phone, or if we can get it, if they have an iPad, we can put it on the iPad. If they have a Chromebook, we're still working out whether or not we can do that or not. With the Chromebooks that we currently have, they're not new, so they're a little bit older. So we're really truly believing that we can get 100% of our students connected. That's our goal, because not knowing and hearing about how how school might look in the future, we want to make sure that everyone has access. And so that's been our challenge. I'm going to be honest with you. That's a huge challenge, is connecting everybody. Again, and also our staff members who don't necessarily have internet or didn't have internet capability to do, classroom Zoom that works. So they're having to utilize their own money to upgrade. And so when Superintendent Hoffman talks about this, the money that we need, if we're going to do this and we're going to do this right, we do need to also consider our staff members who don't have the means as well to pay for their own internet connection and their own devices to be able to do it as well, because that's something we didn't have.
Sheila, I want to ask you, because you're looking at all the school districts. You're in touch with the school board members.
Mm-hmm.
Give us a flavor into what you're hearing, in fact, from the school boards.
It's pretty much the same as my colleagues have just shared. These are challenging times for all of us. But I do want to state that, these challenges, yes, they're challenges, but I want to give kudos out to our leaders, our school board members, our superintendents, the leaders in those school districts for the job that they're doing. They're doing a fantastic and amazing job at stepping up to this challenge that's before all of us. They are stepping up with empathy, courage. They're adapting to this digital divide that we have, and they are partnering with companies, associations, doing whatever they need to get devices into our students' hands. The hotspots, trying to purchase and work out deals with these companies. It's just sad that we have to go to that level and we don't have the funding. We haven't had it. We knew this was going to come at some point. We've been working, trying to close this digital divide for years. But, if we had done what we needed to do when we were supposed to, instead of making all these cuts, then we would not be in the situation that we're in. But I do want to say that our school board members, our district leaders are doing a fantastic job and dealing with the challenges. I don't want to repeat everything that everyone said, but I do want to say that you guys, everyone is working hard, and kudos to everyone, including our state superintendent.
So Kathy, I want to ask you, because you mentioned the digital divide, which is very real in some areas in our state and really acute in those areas, right? So let's say, for example, you're a family, you have kids, you don't have right now, you don't have a computer at home, right? Not only that, maybe you don't have a Wi-Fi at home. What do you do?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and also to piggyback on what LeeAnn was saying, Cartwright is an urban district. That is West Valley, Phoenix.
That's right.
That is, to point out, that is not a remote rural area that does not have internet. These are families in Phoenix that are not able to get online. So this is a very common problem. I've heard the same thing from our school district in Tucson, the biggest one, TUSD, the Tucson Unified School District, that they've already spent $10 million to purchase devices for families. Just in this COVID-19 crisis, $10 million. So I would, for the families out there who are still seeking devices, I would definitely say, please talk to your school to see what they have available. I know, as someone mentioned in the chat, it's very difficult to come by new devices right now. I even talked to one of my teacher friends who she's trying to print materials for her students, and to be able to print at home, she needed to order a printer. She just didn't have a printer at home. Those are also on back order. So the hotspots are on back order, the laptops are on back order, printers, because the whole country has been shifting to telecommuting and learning from home, online learning. So this is a national issue. And but I would recommend, for the families out there, please reach out to your schools, let them know you need assistance. The internet companies have been offering special deals right now, so you can get more affordable internet if you're in an area that is wired for internet. So those are some options. So
the first thing that you should do is obviously contact your school, right? School. So talk to your teacher, talk to the teacher. Presumably, I'm presuming, and I think this is an accurate presumption. The teachers are then figuring out how to get those equipment to those students. What about at the state level? What has your department done? For example, I know you've partnered with the governor. You're working very closely on hotspots. What about computers specifically? What is the department offering at this point?
So at this point, we're still exploring options because of the issue with back order. Even as a department, we're not able to purchase a large order of laptops, just like districts are having the same challenge. But we are looking into doing a state procurement of devices, which would then make it more affordable for our districts to obtain those laptops. So we are looking into that, but we have to do it with the right timing, because if we tried to procure it right now, then there's not enough supply to meet the demand. So it's a supply and demand issue. So we have been asking for donations, that we have a hotspot drive, and then also we worked with the Greater Phoenix team, and they are doing a laptop drive. So if you want to check out through their website, that those laptops can be dropped off at the data doctors to have the laptops, the hard drive wiped to make sure that it's ready for use, and then those laptops that are donated that way are going to students in need. So there are some donation methods.
You're talking about the data doctors. This is an organization that's been asking people, if you have an extra laptop at home, or maybe even an old one, not too old, right? Because if it's too old, you really can't use them. But maybe you have something that you're not really using right now, then go reach out to this organization. How do we reach out to this group again, Kathy?
You can reach us right to Data Doctors or the Greater Phoenix Chamber on their website. It's a community laptop drive. But I just want to point out, it's devastating to be in this situation where so many families want to connect, they want to get online, they want to have enough devices for each child to be able to access their learning. I've talked to so many teachers that are offering online learning. They're having Zoom classes, or they're using Google Classrooms. Sometimes they have lunch with their students. Our school counselors are also using these online services to make sure that students keep getting those social emotional supports that they need. So for those students that don't have the device or the internet at home, they could be very isolated during this time, and they could be experiencing a lot of challenges by not being able to connect. So this is a major issue of equity, and it's something that keeps me up at night.
So I want to ask LeeAnn about the school counselors, because obviously in a traditional school setting, the school counselors are there at least during the day, and if necessary, they're available during after school hours. But now in this environment, the school counselor has to be connected, first of all, right? The school counselor has to have the equipment, but also the family that needs those services. They have to be connected. They have to have the equipment. What's the experience been like in your district? And I'm just curious if you're seeing like an increase in counseling services.
That's a really good question. First, I'd like to say, going back to what Sheila was saying, none of the things that we're doing here could not happen without a very supportive governing board. And so, and also piggyback on what Superintendent Hoffman shared, the partnerships immediately started coming forward to be able to help with the connecting. That would be, United Way, Verizon offered free hotspots. Christy Yamaguchi's foundation for some of our kindergartners that have been working free, keep the free, iPads. Freckle, Lexia said, we could utilize all of their online learning platforms for free, not charging us. And that's important because, as you know, some people are really trying to charge us for this, and we don't have the money, so we do really appreciate that. So prior to the pandemic, one of the top educational concerns for the Cartwright School District was that we did not have counselors in all of our schools. Again, funding, something that I know Superintendent Hoffman's really been pushing, and so has our ASBA and governing board, especially our governing board, the social emotional learning of students. So prior to the pandemic, before this all happened, we didn't get extra funding, but we actually shifted to fund some of our priorities, and we created a director of social emotional learning that just started this school year. And with that, we were able to use Title IV funding to hire a handful of their social workers, we call them the social emotional learning specialists. There are only 6 of them. And so we had already had students that were on what we call the tier 3 students that they had been working on ongoing with the schools and families. We do have a handful of counselors that were, our schools were able to, some of our schools, based on the population of the kids, were able to use funding for that. We also have school counselors in 4 of our middle schools. So next year, we are going to be having a counselor at every school. We were able to shift some of our federal funding, but when you do that, you're also taking away. So you put a counselor in, but you might have to take away a reading or math interventionist, just like Superintendent Hoffman says. We don't have extra money. So that is so important that they understand that when we do these shifts to fund our priorities, because counselors are so important for our students, especially right now. I just had a meeting with our teacher leaders yesterday from the association, and they're very concerned about the students that are not connecting right now. They're very concerned that they can't reach. So our school resource officers are actually going to the homes right now of families that we can't get a hold of, because we want to make sure that every single student that is in Cartwright, we know where they are if they're not connecting online or on the phone, or on email, or Class Jojo, all of those things. We are sending our SROs out there, and it's been really nice because they're coming back saying they're there, they're in the home, they're okay, this is what they need. And then we are working with every school, the principals, assistant principals, teachers, when we're finding students and families that are going through difficult times right now. We are connecting with them personally to make sure that they're okay, and staff members too. We also have staff members that this is very difficult for them. They went into teaching because that's who they are. They want to be with students. They want to, high five their kids and have that interaction. And after the discussion yesterday with my Cartwright Association team leaders, I could just sense they are just, they're so sad not being with their students. It's definitely a different feel.
So
But it's really brought this and connectivity to the forefront of absolutely having to have that in place now.
So, I want to talk about, at the parent level, what kinds of resources are available to parents. And I'm a parent myself. I have a 3rd grader. He's a complete riot. I love being with him, 24/7 for the last month or so now. I can tell you that I'm struggling to homeschool and work full time at the same time. So if he waltz in here in the background, my apologies, because he's 8 years old, and he's been chatting with his friends on Facebook and Messenger as much as possible. But all the parents in his class are in kind of the same boat as I am. We're all working and then homeschooling full time. So I do appreciate that, just the incredible job that teachers do trying to figure this one out. But Liz, let me ask you, to me, the biggest, let me back up a bit. In my school, my son's school, for example, we started with packets, right? So we started printing those packets, and then the parents would go get those packets. And then also we'll go, I will print, when there were packets, it was easy because you're just, he answers the questions, and then I get them back to the school gives me another packet for the next week, right? So that's what happened in my son's school. And then with the stay-at-home order, we couldn't do that anymore. And so now all the learning is being sent via email. So there's a link, and so that our school has done a good job of laying those out for the parents and the teachers, so that the kids, for one, need to immediately learn how to do computers and how to, type in their answers on a PDF. And, thankfully, all these kids are very intuitive now. I can tell you, they know more than we do at this point when we were at their age, no doubt about it. But I can't, for some of the lessons, I can't really print them because I don't have a printer at home. So at the parent level, what's the, let me ask, just maybe Sheila can answer, Liz can answer this one. Any tips for parents like me at this point?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. And, we heard earlier about someone who wanted to try to print at home, but even the printers are are on back order. And so, and I think LeeAnn talked, the key word during all of this is patience and probably flexibility. And I think for parents, the idea that you want your child to continue learning, but we also know that you may not have access to a printer or computer. So there's things, and here's my SLP coming out in me, my speech language pathologist, the power of words and really just communicating with your children. And I know this is a little tricky when you're trying to balance working as well, but even taking, a 20-minute break and talking to your children, one, about the social emotional piece around what they're feeling, what they've heard about the virus, what are some of their concerns. But then in terms of the learning, there's different things in terms of, depending on the age of the child, right? Talk about categorizing some of the things that are in your kitchen, right? Or, there's different activities that you can do at home. And I think the piece for parents is not thinking that you need to go, 6 hours of schooling and be the exact same that it was in school. And so for parents to give themselves the flexibility and interact, and again, the power of words, the power of communicating, activities that utilize items in their homes. And some programs are providing those activities. I saw in the chat, some schools aren't sharing anything yet with parents. So what do parents do? Again, I think trying to be flexible, trying to think about, are there activities in the home that they can use and do? Of course, reading to your kids, asking them questions as you go through. And I know that's challenging too. Some parents also struggle with literacy skills. So, but I think that the biggest part is for parents not to expect or put the pressure on themselves that they're going to do a 9 to 3 kind of school schedule. The most important is that they're communicating to their students, their children, and talking to them, and then asking them even to draw a picture about their experience, and they're missing their friends, write a story about it, right? There's different ways you can incorporate your current situation depending on the age and the abilities of the student, right? So I think it's flexibility and patience, and again, communicating, the power of words is really important.
Yeah, so I can tell you, for example, that, we've been practicing flexibility at home too much. My kid takes forever to go through some of his lessons. It is what it is. He called his classmate yesterday, and the first words out of his mouth was, "Oh, so how's self-isolation?" Which is kind of funny, but also kind of sad. Let me ask Kathy. Kathy, so we're transitioned now to at-home learning. Like we've had it for like a couple of weeks now. And so some schools are doing online learning, some combination of just digital learning. Some things are being sent via email, and some are still doing packets or trying to figure out how to do packets. In LeeAnn's case, they're sending the packets to the homes. But how do we make sure that the standards don't actually slide? Like in my case, from just what I'm seeing from my kid, I can tell you that standards are probably sliding at my home right now, just because there's not a real focus like a teacher would do. And so I'm just wondering, what are you seeing?
Yeah, this is concerning, of course, but I think exactly what Liz was just saying about, we can't expect kids to be learning in the exact same way that they would be if they were in a structured classroom for, like, if this is a typical school quarter and they were in a typical classroom with a teacher who, teachers have that expertise in how to structure lessons and how to motivate kids. Whereas when kids are at home, they're used to things being more relaxed and having fun with their family or with their friends. And so it's really hard to have that transition from school to home. But I think we should be really careful to make sure we're not saying that kids are falling behind, because that puts the blame on the child, and they are in a completely new environment, and this has been really traumatic for our kids to be. I know they miss their friends, they miss their teachers. I hear this all the time from the students and teachers that I talk to, that they miss, there's a lot of loss. People are feeling a lot of loss during this time. And we also don't know what might be happening in their home. They could have a parent who's lost a job, or both parents. They could have a sick family member who's in quarantine. So because of all the different circumstances right now, I think as a system, we need to make sure that when schools do convene again, and whether that's summer school, I know a lot of schools are looking into online summer school options so that they can continue with having the safety measures in place. Looking ahead to July and August when our school districts reconvene, I think the best practice would be to have to be able to take baseline data of students when they come back to school. So to check in with using either formal or informal assessments or assignments to check in to see what their skill ability level is at that time. And then we need to meet the students where they're at. And we need, if they need extra supports and resources, if they need interventions, a reading specialist, we need to have those supports in place so that those students can continue to be successful. But I just want to be careful that that there's nothing punitive and that occurs. Like, I don't think kids should be held back for this time when they may not have the same access to learning as their peers.
And thank you for that, Kathy. I think I agree with you there that we definitely should not be blaming our kids as a result of this. In the home environments where they're supposed to just go and play, right, and have fun, and now it's turned completely into a schoolroom. Some of the time, if not most of the time during the day. If you're just tuning in, or if you've been tuning in for a while now, do send in your questions. In fact, some of the questions have already been coming through. Let me just ask some of them here. There are a lot of questions were asked about learning and distance learning, the digital divide in our in the Native American nations, given the difficulties that they have in terms of just the equipment and then Wi-Fi. Arizona is a pretty big state. Kathy, you want to answer that?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, the situation, the circumstances in Navajo Nation are even more dire than in other parts of the states. They have had more of an outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. They have had to open emergency medical centers, and I've talked to school districts where they've had upwards of over 20 staff members who have been confirmed with the cases of the COVID-19. So these are very unique situations. We've been prioritizing making sure that kids have food when they live in these types of situations on Navajo Nation, that we are working with even the National Guard to make sure to see if they can even help with the meal delivery. We're also working, there's a program through USDA and Baylor University in Texas where they are mailing food to our school students in Navajo Nation to their homes, because it's so difficult for them to access the meals, because there's even more strict shelter-in-place policies in place and curfews in Navajo Nation. So I would say in those types of situations, we need to prioritize the livelihood, making sure they have meals, making sure they are healthy and have access to medical care when that's needed. That's, to me, the biggest priority. And then the schools are providing packets, as was mentioned, as one way to provide educational opportunities. But with, it's so challenging when there's families there without even electricity at home. Like, it's just not going to look the same for families that have the resources at home. And it's devastating.
One other question came in from a former SPED teacher in Flagstaff, a unified school district, who's concerned about kids with IEPs and how they're being supported. She said that when she was, that she has used Lexia learning literacy for her SPED students in her last year of teaching. And she's wondering if the State Department of Education could immediately make this program for struggling readers available to all students. I don't think this is a state decision. This is more like a district decision, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. So as a local control state, the districts, the governing boards decide on which types of curriculum that they want to procure. So Lexia would be considered a curriculum program that they could procure. But I do want to point out that in terms of special education services, our special education department in the Department of Education has been working overtime to provide supports to they meet on a very regular basis, at least weekly, with special education directors to provide guidance and support. We have put a lot of different resources and webinars on our website. There's a whole special education section. I highly recommend that both parents and teachers check out this all these resources that we've put on our website, because even for lots of we have resources for lots of different things for both families and for educators, but specifically for special education, because I know that is a high concern for a lot of people in terms of issues with access. We're still working through what will compensatory services look like in the future to make up these missed hours. But I do know I've even been able to, people have sent me videos of how they are providing services using video. So for example, the Foundation for Blind Children, all of their students have vision impairment, and they sent me a video that they had posted onto YouTube that was showing how they're still having classes with their students who are blind or have a vision impairment. So we know that just because a student has a disability doesn't mean that they should still be given every chance and every opportunity to participate in online learning, and we need to make the accommodations for those that need the accommodations. But I do know this is a huge challenge as well. This is not easy for anyone.
And so, in fact, one of our listeners mentioned that the Arizona Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, that they're hearing from the parents who have students here, that there's a lack of accessibility of options, videos with no captions, for example, for students with hearing loss. I want to ask Sheila, what are you hearing in terms of delivering services to to our SPED students, but also if students are deaf or hard of hearing?
Well, actually, our governmental relations department, our lobbyists are constantly working with our legislators and lobbying for funding for special education, and they're about special education, E-rate. We're trying at every level to support what's happening in the school districts. At ASBA, we're also, we have on our website a lot of resources as well for our school board members or our superintendents and leaders in the school districts that address governing meetings, board governance and meetings, district policies and things of that nature, school finance, legislative policies. And when we talk about the needed resources, technology needs and high quality programs, this all comes down to state leaders agreeing to continue to support our public schools and the funding they need to educate all of our students, all 1 million students that we have here, and most of them are living in poverty. And that's what it basically comes down to. This is a conversation we must continue to focus on and keep investing in our public schools and our educators.
And of course, we do have Liz on the panel here. So if there are some school districts that want to connect with her, they can connect with Liz. And Liz, how do the school districts, by the way, connect with you?
Sure. And so, again, as Kathy said, there's lots of different resources out there. We're excited. Lexia and both Lexia and Rosetta Stone products are available. We opened up licenses for free to existing customers. So that's available if you are a district in Arizona that was already using it. Even if you just had one license, that's free. You could go to lexialearning.com, and the information is on there. Those are free through the end of June. And that would probably be the best way to get in touch with your local representative. I'm happy if you email me too, I'm happy to connect you. But I just want to say, you know, absolutely, we have a blended learning program that has been proved effective. And whether it's Lexia or another program, I do want to encourage us all in this time of uncertainty that we don't throw out all those rigorous standards that we held our programs to that ultimately show effective learning gains for our students. And so, you know, programs that have teacher components and data components, not just the digital component, is really important. And so I just encourage, as everybody's thinking about this, you know, again, as we've been talking about getting the health and well-being taken care of, the connectivities. And then when you're starting to think, you know, LeeAnn said you're in phase 3, and that's where the programs come in, that we look at those standards. We want to make sure it's not just the free programs or just, you know, whatever. So, but they're happy to have people reach out directly to me, or they can go to Lexia Learning or Rosetta Stone's. But again, that is an offer that is available to those across the country. In fact, we've had 19,000 more students in Arizona served through that program. We had 37,000 using Lexia before and 19,000 more with this offer. So we're excited to be a partner in this. But there's, you know, it takes a village, and it takes these partnerships, and we're happy to be partners with all of you.
And any, I think LeeAnn or Kathy can answer this. Any information you can share on whether schools will be able to reopen to provide services this summer? Is there talk of delaying reopening in the fall?
I can jump in really quick to say what we've been talking about at the state level, and then LeeAnn can share what their conversations look like at the local level. So at this time, I know summer is right around the corner, and so most districts I've talked to, most superintendents have said that for their summer school that they are planning for more online types of options. That I haven't heard many districts saying that they plan to have a typical summer school program, but I know that a lot of those decisions are still in the process of being made, and I know everyone's kind of like in a wait and see type of mode. But looking ahead to the next school year, which for some of our districts starts in mid-July, which I think is probably one of the earliest starts in the country. So we need to be very proactive in thinking about what does that look like to reopen schools into the next school year. So what we're doing is we are having now weekly meetings, regular meetings with the Department of Health Services and the Arizona School Nurse Organization to be talking about what are the public health components that need to be part of a plan for reopening our schools. And this would be like a framework or recommendations for our districts to help them and when they do reopen schools. So thinking about what policies and procedures are needed to ensure that student safety, as well as the safety of all staff members for all levels, teachers, as well as every single person who works in our school, to make sure that they feel safe returning to work. We also need to think through what that might look like if there's more absences. And then I also know for many districts that previously did not provide online learning, but now have shifted to 100% online learning, that some of them have been pursuing becoming a certified online institution through the State Board of Education, so that they can continue with either more online learning in the next school year, or I don't know if it'll be 100% or partial, or just for students who maybe are, because we do have medically fragile students as well. So there's a lot of planning going into this, but we do expect to have a more robust, comprehensive plan available and to be put out by the end of May.
Do we expect the schools to actually reopen for the fall? That's the...
Well, learning will definitely be continuing. So I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. It could vary from district to district of, again, how much online they're going to be doing. It could depend on what the virus situation looks like in terms of confirmed cases. It could be regionally based. So there will be a lot of local decisions made by local school boards. But at the state level, we want to make sure we have a framework for best practices to support our districts in that decision-making process to make sure they have the appropriate policies and procedures in place.
LeeAnn or Sheila or Kathy, what about resources for families who have pre-K students?
Yes. First of all, I'd like to say that when this all started, I know Sheila had a meeting with our governing board members, our governing board president, Marissa Hernandez attended, and from the get-go, one of their biggest concerns was ensuring that our students with special needs were attended to, among other things. And so I think the biggest thing with that is communication, those families, ourselves, communicating with each other. I know there was a question on chat regarding Spanish-speaking parents, which we have many. We have many translators for those families that need that. If you call our number, it'll say press 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. We updated that because we always had someone live. Now we're trying to be more intentional about that. But when it comes to that, it's all about communication being key. With the preschool, I think one of the most interesting was thinking outside the box, because that personal attention with the preschool student, as you know, is so important. And so they really wanted to do a lot more paper pencil and kind of some of the ideas that Liz had talked about with, discovery at home. But we do recognize that many of our parents can't spend that time. And so we did decide, rather than giving our little ones the Chromebooks, that the iPads were more suited, and maybe tablets that are less expensive, because there's different apps that they could utilize. So we were able to find preschool apps, and we do have many of our staff members talking to families and parents about how to utilize them. But once you get on those apps, there's some really great learning apps for the young ones. And I think you had said that, Luigi, our kids know more about how to access technology than we ever will. And so we're definitely making sure that even our preschool children have access to that online learning. We're just trying to get better finding out what actually works. But I just want to say that I want our staff to know and our families to know that we would never want to go strictly online. If we do that, as Superintendent Hoffman says, if we do plan for more online learning at home for next year, next semester, next August, next September, is truly based on the fact that there are so many unknowns. The health and safety of our staff and our students will and has been the priority in every decision that the governing board members and myself and my team have really kept at the forefront, is the safety before all others. So I'll let others speak because I know we're getting to the end of our time. So thank you.
Yep. I do want to mention a couple of things that that some of our viewers and listeners have asked via our chat room or commented via our chat room. One said that he is coordinating with the Arizona Broadband Stakeholder Network and have created an Arizona COVID-19 task force to address the issues we are discussing today, and that work is ongoing. There's one other viewer and listener said that he's ready to donate a Wi-Fi hotspot. I know you all mentioned about all these companies, these nonprofit organizations. I'm sorry, LeeAnn, you raised your hand. So you saw that guy who said I got a hotspot, so go grab his number. But I'm encouraged by just everybody who's really trying to do their best to ensure that our kids are still learning and are helping those families that are struggling. We are pretty much out of time. I do want to just ask you quickly, what is the best thing that emerge out of this crisis for you? Let me just real quickly, Sheila, let me start with you.
Great. What the camaraderie, the people stepping up, people are doing what they know their heart is telling them to do. being safe, keeping our children safe, keeping our communities fed. I mean, it just came out. It was there all the time, but you see that now. People are being kind to one another. They're helping wherever they can. Just being nice, being understanding, empathetic. You see that in strangers, you know. So I think that's what I'm getting out of this. But I also wanted to say before we turned off is that we are celebrating all of our educators on May 5th of this year. So if you see a teacher, give them a thumbs up or something, because they're all, and leaders, superintendents, principals, all of our educators. Also, graduation day. We're celebrating graduation day in our state on May 20th. So kudos to those kids that are out there, the seniors. I feel so bad for them. However, I wanted to also share that AZ Ed News is doing a senior digital yearbook for them. Senior photos are posted online in education news on our education news website. So if you have a senior, send that picture in. So we're celebrating them as well. And also AZE Ed News is awarding teachers there will be awarding a teacher a $200 grant during the month of May. So
awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let me see, Liz, what's the best thing that emerged out of this crisis for you?
Again, I think Sheila covered a lot of it. I think the focus and the appreciation around what teachers do every day. I've seen all those, even Life is Good t-shirts around the appreciation for educators. And so I think that's phenomenal. I think, again, as Sheila said, everybody working together. And really the focus, and I saw a lot of this in the chat as well, the focus on what is learning, and the focus on, the social emotional connections between teachers and students, and other ways to measure progress, whether that's ongoing in the background or whatever it might be. So I think just that camaraderie, that empathy, and the appreciation for what educators do every day. And then, again, everybody coming together and working together to make sure our students are supported, our caregivers, and our educators. So we're just, again, happy to be part of it and helping support students.
Thank you, Liz. LeeAnn, same question.
Echo all of that, but really just the passion, the love for our students, our families, and then for each other. I mean, that has just been, it's what gets me through all of this. It's just, everybody has just been incredible. And it comes out in everything that we do every day. And I'm just so appreciative for everyone. So that's what I would say. Thank you.
And Superintendent, you have the last word, ma'am.
Thank you. Yes, I would also echo what everyone else just said. And I would say that right now, the state collaboration of state agencies has been unprecedented. That, our partnership with the governor's office, Department of Health Services, Arizona Commerce Authority, and other state agencies, working with our education organization partners, the collaboration has just been unprecedented. And I think that showing, also the legislature, they very quickly passed legislation to ensure that our teachers and all school staff had continuity of pay. That is incredible to have such bipartisan support for our public schools, and all of our public school staff was just incredible. So I think that that is a shiny lining, a silver lining to all of this, is that we are all collaborating, working together to meet the needs of our students and our school communities. And we need to continue that. Again, we cannot afford a single cut to education right now. We need to be working together because I think going forward that our school communities could be a source for even improving our economic security, because our schools are a stable place for people to work with job benefits and retirement type benefits, healthcare benefits. So right now, I would say that our schools are hiring and they need you. We need We need to have educators supporting the next generation of Arizonans. So I would encourage that this is a time to continue that support and investment of our public school system.
Kathy, Sheila, LeeAnn, Liz, thank you again for this morning. Thank you to Lexia Learning for sponsoring it. And you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye for now.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Have a good day.